So we have Kyra Gardner here, writer director of Living with Chucky, which is a documentary that we actually got the chance to see at Fantastic Fest last year, and we really enjoyed it. So just want to say very good job on that.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to see it on a big screen. That's cool.
Yeah, that was very good to see, especially with a full crowd, because you really get a lot when you see it with a crowd. Everybody's
Yeah,
reactions to the callbacks from the series, seeing the big faces, big names behind the movies as well.
so true. I just remembered everybody clapping when John Waters came on screen. I just think I wasn't expecting that. It's
Yeah,
funny.
that was definitely a big moment when he came on the screen, and I think he got like the biggest pops.
Rightfully
So
so.
my first question to you is, now that you've gone on, made the documentary, all of that, how do you feel about the reception it's been getting at festivals and just online from people waiting to see it as well?
It kind of doesn't feel real because I've spent so long with this project and there were so many obstacles in getting it finished and out there. So the fact that people are actually reviewing it now is crazy to me. But also, it's been so positive, which blows my mind because I was really worried tackling like a beloved 30-year-old franchise with very strongly opinionated and rightfully so horror fans. It was like, I hope I did it justice. And so far as what I'm reading, I try not to read everything as a filmmaker, but it seems like people are really enjoying it or taking a liking to something or a specific facet or like a whole chunk of it, and it makes my filmmaking heart so happy.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a fan base for Child's Play is very wide in range. Like my
Yeah,
whole family, they all love it. Um, all of the movies. So uh, definitely been seeing a lot of people hyped to see this movie, and just from the reception it got a Fantastic Fest. In my opinion, it is a great film as well. So
aw.
really excited once more people get to see it as well.
Me too, me too.
So I had seen that this was actually a short you had made first called The Dollhouse. So how did that go from you making that short and then deciding I'm gonna do a full length feature for this as well?
Yeah, it was a short film I did in film school. And at the time, coincidentally, Cult of Chucky was coming out that year. So Dawn and David actually pushed Universal to include it on their bonus features for Cult of Chucky, which was so sweet. And then on top of that, it played for all the festivals because Cult of Chucky was uh video on demand or like streaming, and so it did the festival circuit, and my short film opened for all of their premieres. And that was the first time where I really got to see like the Chucky fan base in full swing and action, and like everybody swarming Dawn and Jennifer and Fiona, and seeing like the love and appreciation the fan base had for it. And then coincidentally having a few people come up to me and like thanking me for the short film and providing them a deeper insight into a franchise they already loved, and they're like, I love it even more now. And I didn't realize what a big impact it would have. So that was kind of the impetus for going into a feature length version, because I already had so much footage going into the 7-minute film, like way too many hours, like too many hours to put into 7 minutes. So I was like, this deserves a feature length film. I think I'm going to try and pursue this. So I got interviews as I could as I was graduating film school. And then when I graduated, I just kept on doing it and seeing what would come of it.
Yeah, it's definitely if you had that many hours for the 7 minute, I'm assuming you had way more for the feature length then.
Oh yeah, like for 14 hours of footage or something like that, which is crazy. And that's just like interviews, not like B-roll or BTS footage to go through or anything like that.
So when it comes to that, how is it like the whole process of choosing what clips you want to have and which ones you had to like cut off?
As far as like using them from the movies or interviews.
Just the interviews in general right now.
Copy that. It was difficult. It was really just finding what would flow together. I had like a very boring like 3 hour no b-roll cut that actually a film professor of mine at FSU watched, bless his heart. And from there it was kind of like deciding that I wanted to do a retrospect with it going chronologically through the films. And once that happened, it was a lot easier to pick and choose what I needed as far as things to segue. Because it was like, obviously, when we're talking about this film, these are the clips I'm using. But then as we segued into talking about puppetry and budget cuts and things like that, it got a little chaotic. But I had a color coding system. And like I transcribed everybody's interviews and then color coded it, and whatever color could then go into another color, if that makes sense, in the same
Mhm.
sentence is what I would use as segues. And then it was just finding, as far as finding the best bits and pieces, like there were definitely one lines that I had that I loved, but it made it hard for the documentary to flow in a way that you're not realizing so much time is passing and now we're talking about this thing. So it was hard to cut some of my babies out of there.
Especially when you got so many of the people that worked on this. There's so many things that probably you wanted to include that they said, but there was like just too many other things as well. I could understand that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also I didn't want, the potential for this documentary to have also been like 6 hours is totally plausible, but I was not going to do that to myself or the audience.
But I think the final cut that we saw, I think that was so good, especially the way you interlaced it with the clips from the movies, the interviews as well. I thought it really gave a great like history of Chucky and Child's Play, and also really loved the emotional aspect of the film as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that was important to me of why I wanted to do this was the personal aspect because we've seen horror documentaries before, but I sometimes don't feel like I get to know the people, even if it's a longer documentary at the end of the day. Whereas that was my goal with this. I wanted you to get to know these people as I was getting to know them in these candid conversations.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a lot that I learned from this. Just not just about Chucky or the movie making process, but just where these people were at the time and their personal stories as well, and your story as well, which was quite touching at the end. Honestly, going into this, I expected it to just be this retrospective type film on the franchise, but I felt like I really got to know everybody involved, and honestly, it was moving at the end.
Oh, thank you. Good. Cause I was like sniffling while editing that stuff with me and my dad. I was like, I hope somebody else cries.
Yeah, it did get a little tears from me at the end.
No, yay. I'm not rooting for you to cry, but if you did, I'm not opposed to that.
No, I think that's definitely a mission is to at least get people moved or feeling something, and you accomplished that.
Exactly. That's the only goal you can have as a filmmaker sometimes. It's like if I got a reaction out of you, whether you hated it or you loved it or it made you sad or it made you laugh, that's all I
Yeah.
can do.
So my next question for you is, you had a lot of people in this film that worked on the Child's Play series. Were there some people that you wanted to get in there, but it just wasn't enough time to get them in there, or it was just like hard to get them?
Yeah, I I reached out, well, because I also started this, just by myself. I didn't have an agent at the time or anything like that. So I was just going with whatever contact information I have, if people could connect me and those types of things. So I did reach out to Kevin Yeager. I would have loved for him to be a part of the documentary, and to meet him as like the original puppeteer on the franchise, but I just never got a response back. I don't know if he just didn't see it or I got the wrong email or there's so many other factors or just like the timing, who knows. And Tom Holland I would have loved to have in the documentary as well, but he said no. And then Justin Whalen, actually I always forget this, I wanted to get Justin Whalen for Child's Play 3, and that's kind of why that segment is short, but he is like nowhere to be found, that man. I
No.
like not even on social media. I don't know anybody who knows him. So that was someone that would have been nice to have to buffer up that, to beef up Child's Play 3 section, but I could not find him.
Yeah, definitely. But I think what you were able to bring and everybody in here definitely fills it all up nicely.
Oh, thank you.
So now that you are done with that's living with Chucky and it's going to be coming to streaming soon, are you working on another documentary or are you pivoting to more narrative now?
I shot and directed a making of that could definitely be a documentary of the Foo Fighters movie Studio 666 that came
Okay.
out last year. So I followed them for 2, 3 years, documenting the entirety of that movie. So I would hope that that gets turned into like an hour-long documentary little feature. But so that's something that I've shot, but I plan to get back into the narrative space. Narrative horror, narrative fantasy is my goal.
Yeah, definitely excited to see whatever comes from you next for sure.
Oh, thank you.
So now that you completed your documentary, what piece of advice would you give to those out there that are looking to make their documentary for the first time that you wish you had known before getting into it?
Fair use attorneys exist. They are real. They do not have to be insanely hard rates. Don't let anybody steer you otherwise, that you have to do all the proper by the book licensing and get all this insane, absurd amount of money. It's not true. Go look at a documentary that is a low budget one that you like and see if you can't find their attorney information and reach out to them, because there are a lot of attorneys that have specifically worked in the horror genre. I wish I had known that 3 years ago, as well as in your documentary, something that is, if you're doing a documentary on like a movie or something like that, that has IP that is heavily copyrighted, um, you're going to be asked to give your actors who are in those clips reuse fees for using those clips. Uh, you can work it into your contract with your actors if they like you and appreciate what you're doing, that you can waive those fees, because otherwise it's astronomical and it's going to be like your entire budget. So if you get hit with all these crazy things, there are so many loopholes. Just breathe. You will get through it. There's always a loophole to something.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time today as well, answering all of our questions. Um,
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
yes, and Living with Chucky will be streaming on April 4th on Screenbox and available digitally as well. And thank you again.
Thank you.